Hey, what's up, everybody? How you guys doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? See, we got already a crowd today. Wow, I see a lot of people already in here been commenting. How you guys doing? Charlie, how you doing? Solanke, how you doing? How you guys doing? Yes, yes. So today we decided to give you guys a head start before we go live. So we're gonna have a good live today. Let's just do the normal waiting, and while we wait for everybody, check in. Let us know where you're coming in from. Clippers. Okay, great. So for the people that are in here, that want a live chat tonight during the game, if you guys want a live chat, Marco just uploaded the link to Dreamerspro Max. It's in the comment box. He's pinned it to the top. So if you guys want a live chat tonight, make sure you sign up to Dreamerspro Max. That's the way you do it. So if you guys want to do that, that's there. Okay, I see we got Dallas, Texas. How you guys doing in? Tuning in from Arizona. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Also say what's good to Marco. He's in here too. So we just wait a few minutes and then we get into this live because I got a lot of stuff I want to cover today. I'm going to first of all start off by talking about what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the game, and I'm going to give you guys my preview, the kind of normal preview and breakdown that we normally do. So I think it's going to be a good one. So let's just give everybody some time to get in here, and then we'll go over what we think is going to happen today. I see people coming in. Yeah, KD can't do it alone, man, but we're definitely going to get into that. Hey, welcome in from Greece. I see some people are coming in from Greece. How y'all doing? Natty Bread, what's good? Yeah, Marco the GOAT, man. Marco's always busy, man. Marco the GOAT, man. So say what's good to him. So let's just give it like 2 more minutes, and then we'll see how, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Let me make sure I got all of my stats and everything ready here so we can get it started. Just a second here. Make sure you check in and hit the likes on your way in so you know that we are here. Okay. Let's just wait a few more minutes. Okay. Hey, appreciate that, man. Appreciate that, Sam. PG dropping 50 today. Hey, welcome in from St. Louis. If he does, no one will be happier than me to see it. Trust me. I'll be very, very, very happy to see him do that. What's good? Hollywood, California. Candace Leo is here. I think Candace, she didn't make it to the last one, so I think she's here for this one. So that's pretty cool. So let's give it like another minute or so. Let's give it like another 1 or 2 minutes, and then we get started. Today's game is a must-win. You better believe it's a must-win. There's no 2 ways about it. This is a must-win. Let's not even front. You don't want to go down 3-1. Now, teams have come back being down 3-1, like the Denver Nuggets, who went out of the. And by the way, man. What a way to end a season with the Denver Nuggets. What a way to end a season. What a disappointing way to end a season. Not only were they down 3-0, then in the last game, you're fighting for your playoff life. And then Nikola Jokic gets thrown out of that game. What a way to end the season, man. What a horrible way to end the season. But I think these, I don't think that was worth him being ejected in that game. Seriously, I think you can give him 2 free throws and a ball, but in a game 4 when the team is trying to stay alive in the series and you throw him out of the game for that, and I don't think he meant to hit him on the face. Like, I've never seen him do anything like that in his career. So for them to do that, what a terrible play. But what can you say? Exactly. And they were missing what's his name? Oh gosh, what's the guy? Jamal Murray. If Denver had Jamal Murray, it would have been a completely different series. Trust me. No way the Phoenix Suns have beaten them 4 straight. No way. Exactly. It should have been a flagrant 1. No way they will beat them 4 straight. No way. He's too good. He's too good. And he seems to be a big time playoff player, kind of similar to Donovan Mitchell. So just a shameful way to end the series, man. I feel really bad for those fans, but what can you do? You're not sold on the Suns. Well, the Suns have the 2 teams that and that's why I said sometimes you just got to get lucky, and health plays a major role. The Suns this year, if you think of the Golden State Warriors, I think on one of their championship runs, they played against teams that their point guards were injured. They played against, remember when they played against the San Antonio Spurs? I think it was in 2015, and Kawhi got injured in game one. Now you find the Phoenix Suns beating two teams in the first round, and Anthony Davis was injured. And then you go to the second round, Jamal Murray was injured. Now, is that the Suns' fault? No, right? Because Chris Paul has been on the other side of that. There was a time when he was injured in game 7 with the Houston Rockets. So that's just a part of sports, something you can't control. So that's how it goes. But anyway, all right, so let me get into this here. So for the people that have come in, make sure you hit the likes if you're in here. Again, if you guys want to live chat during the game tonight for game 4, if you guys want to live chat, make sure you sign up to Dreamerspro Max. Marco has posted the link to it in the top of the comment section, so you guys can do that there. So that's there, so you guys already know that. Okay, so let's get into it. So first of all, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets for a second. I'm going to get to the Clippers, but I want to touch on the Nets for a second. The question is, are the Nets in trouble? And personally, I think that the Nets are in trouble. Now, here's what I think. I think that if it was James Harden by himself, I would give the Brooklyn Nets a chance to win game 5. Seriously, I would. If it was Kyrie by himself, I would not give him a chance. And if it's KD by himself, you know what, to be honest with you, I'm not going to give him I wouldn't give him a chance. And this is the reason why. James Harden has proven that he can go out there and score 40 points and get like 15 assists in a game. James Harden is one of these players that seems to make everybody better than they naturally are. If it was James Harden on that team, I'm sure James Harden would have been able to get a lot out of those Brooklyn Nets players, at least more than Kevin Durant would or Kyrie Irving would. KD is not a facilitator and to that level. He's not a playmaker. James Harden is. Kyrie Irving, that's not his game. Kyrie Irving is primarily a scorer that can assist the ball. Excuse me, but he's looking to score. James Harden can finish a game with 24 points and 18 assists, and your team will still win. This is why I was saying James Harden is the most important Brooklyn Net. He's not the best, but he is the most important one. He's the one that makes that engine go. Now, let me say this. When the Nets started playing the Milwaukee Bucks in round 2, I was absolutely astonished of how bad they were beating the Bucks, to be honest with you. It was surprising. The Nets were out there making the Bucks look pretty bad. Even in that game 3 win that they got, it was pretty ugly. And Giannis Antetokounmpo was looking like as if he was not even a factor to the level that they needed him to be because of his ability, because he cannot make perimeter shots. He was hurting his team. Giannis looked like an all-star out there, but he didn't look like the MVP of the league, to be quite honest with you. He didn't look like the defensive player of the year out there, to be quite honest with you. So I was surprised how poorly the Bucks were playing. But now, if it's just going to be KD, it's going to be tough. I don't think Kyrie Irving is going to come back in game 5. And if he does come back, I think he's going to be a little bit limited. Remember, it's not like as if the Brooklyn Nets were at home. He had to travel back to New York. So you have to travel on that ankle, which is not fun. Transit, get to your room and all of these different things, and then do treatment. And is that enough time to be ready for a game 5 to play in an NBA game, knowing that your ankle is very important to your shooting because, you know, if your legs are not there, your jump shot is not going to be going in as much as you would expect it to. And Kyrie Irving is not one of these big 6'5", 6'6" shooting guards that can just play close to the basket all game long and just post you up. He's not that type of player. Which brings me to KD. I don't think KD can carry this team on his own. Here's why. In game 4, basically, the Milwaukee Bucks just ganged up on him. I've never seen KD shoot 36% from the field. He shot 36% from the field. These guys were just crowding him. And it was so easy for them to guard him because the entire Bucks defense could just key in on him and force other players to make shots. Joe Harris, whoever it is, Blake Griffin, all these other guys, force them to make shots. So they just pretty much ganged up on him. He could not play with any spacing. That's one of the differences with having Kyrie Irving on the court. KD is most effective when he has another scoring threat on the floor. because it allows him to play usually one-on-one and in some cases one-on-two, right? But once KD, like the whole defense is keying in on him and he's the primary scoring option without a legitimate number 2 scoring option, you're going to see things like this happen. Now, is KD one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen? Absolutely. Can KD go out there and score 50 points in game 5? Absolutely. Will they need like a 40, 50-point game from him? I believe so. Because Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez and all of these other guys, excuse me, they're going to show up. They're going to show up. So I think it's going to be pretty tough for them to win this series without those guys, to be quite honest with you. And sometimes that's just injuries, man. Sometimes you get injured. Look at the Miami Heat last year. They went to the finals. Goran Dragic was injured. I think Bam Adebayo got injured for one game. It happens. It's the part of sports. You can't control it. So I think Brooklyn is going to have their work cut out for them. And I think it's going to be really tough. And if they do lose, I think it's going to be a little bit anticlimactic because now we were expecting the Brooklyn Nets to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, but now it looks like it would probably be the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers, which I think is going to be an extremely fun series. But to kind of imagine the Eastern Conference Finals without the Brooklyn Nets, it's a bit of a disappointment. I know a lot of New York fans and people from New York, I know they're going to be disappointed. I know they're going to be disappointed because at least people on the East Coast in New York, they had at least 2 teams they could root for. They know the Knicks weren't going to go far, but they had a feeling at least the Brooklyn Nets will go far. But now when they're missing 2 of their best 3 players, I think it's going to be really tough. So we got to see. We got to see. Bandwagon fans, Nets fans, yeah, we got to see. We got to see because KD is going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat. Now, I think this. If the Brooklyn Nets are able to win game 5, and for example, Kyrie doesn't play, you give Kyrie 3 days to rest because you gave him yesterday, today, tomorrow, and then they'll play on Wednesday. So you give him time to rest. But if you're asking him to come back today, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. And KD is going to have to put up like a 40, 50-point game, which he's absolutely capable of because let's just be honest, he is the best player on the court. I'm sorry. Tucker can't guard him like consistently when he's going. So KD's going to have to show up and we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. But it's been a crazy playoff so far. Yesterday, this guy got tossed. Nikola Jokic, the MVP, got tossed in a game 4. They ended up getting swept. Now Kyrie Irving is out. So what a way to start off the playoffs, man. The first round was good. The first round was entertaining. But, man, what a playoffs we're going to have. And I heard John Sally predicted it a while ago. I think he said going into this season, I think he predicted the Bucks and the Clippers to be in the finals. But I'm sure probably his opinion changed later on as the season was progressing. But, man, what a way to kind of start off the playoffs. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? But I'll say this. If the Clippers do make it out of this series and they go to the Western Conference Finals, I think is going to be the most entertaining series in the Western Conference this year. If you guys thought that the Dallas Mavericks and the Clippers was exciting, it's the Phoenix Suns and the Clippers is going to be fireworks with Devin Booker going at Paul George, Chris Paul going at Paul George. Notice I didn't say Kawhi Leonard because none of them dudes is foolish enough to go at Kawhi. I think it's just going to be fantastic to watch. So we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, so I got my thoughts off as far as the Brooklyn Nets and what I thought about that. So anyway, let me get into the Clippers and Jazz. So today we're going into game 4. And this is going to be a pivotal one. This is a pivotal one, and this is obviously a must-win. There are no 2 ways about it. This is a must-win, period. Right? I would even say more of a must-win for the Clippers than it is for the Utah Jazz because if the Utah Jazz lose, okay, they lost, and you can say, okay, we defended home court, we lost on the road. Now it's a best-of-3 series. Who can win the next 2 to 3 games, right? Now, it put pressure on them to win game 5, but it's not like as if they're going to be in a 3-1 hole if they lose tonight. So I think more of the pressure is absolutely on the Clippers to win this game. I don't think anyone with a straight face would doubt that. The Clippers need to win this game. Just that simple. So that's obvious. So let me talk about some things that I think are going to happen. I think the Jazz are going to come out aggressive because this is how the Utah Jazz play. They're a very aggressive team, especially they put a lot of energy. They crowd your airspace. They come at you in droves. This is something I noticed from them watching them play earlier in this season. This is who they are. It's like their muscle memory. For you to tell the Utah Jazz to come out there with a lot of energy, it's not something you have to tell them to manufacture. It's just who they is. They're just naturally an intense team, right? With Bogdanovich, Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, let me say, what's his name? Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, not so much on the defensive side of the floor, but definitely on the offensive side of the floor. That's just how they are. You have Jordan Clarkson. He comes into the game. He's aggressive. He's looking to shoot. He's not passive. So that's how they are, right? So going into this game, there are a number of things I think we need to look at. So I have a lot of notes here, and I want to give you guys a very good comprehensive breakdown, and then I'll let you guys go. So let me get into it here. First thing to look for: will Paul George get off to a good start, hot start again? This is the first thing. I think if we're talking about the Clippers, one of the most important things to be on the lookout for is, will Paul George get off to a hot start? You guys saw the difference between Paul George when he starts off a game hot and when he's finishing a game hot. When Paul George starts off the game hot, he's already in a rhythm. So he can keep scoring all game long. Now, he only scored 20. He scored 20 points in the first half. He scored 11 in the second half. So, yes, it wasn't a 20 and a 20, but he was already in a rhythm. It wasn't like as if he was still trying to search for a rhythm. I think one of the first things we got to look for is, will Paul George get off to a good start? That is fundamental. I'm expecting, or rather, I would need at least 25 to 30 points from PG. That needs to be the range. Not 22, not 23, not 21, 25 to 30. That's what we need from PG. I need him to be aggressive, but I also need him to be efficient early. I don't need to see Paul George starting the game 2 of 9. Right? I think Paul George should be hovering around the 50 to 45% field goal percentage just to get off on the right foot. That's the first thing. The reason I'm saying that is because of this. Because I'm not sure what Marcus Morris Sr. is going to do. Now, let me talk about Marcus Morris Sr. for a second. All season long, I've said Marcus Morris Sr. is my favorite Clipper, right? Because I just like his toughness, his intensity, his defense, the fact that he led the league. He was the number 2 3-point shooter in the league. But Marcus Morris has just been a little bit of a disappointment in these playoffs. He's not played up to the level that he needs to play at. Now, if we look at Marcus Morris Sr. stats here, if I bring up his stats, Marcus Morris Sr., I think I had his numbers here. Exactly, yeah. In the playoffs, in 10 games, he's averaging 10 points per game, which is fine. He's shooting 39% from the field, which is not good. Last year in the playoff, he shot 50%, but okay. He's shooting 33% from the three. That is horrendous. For a guy that shot 47, 48% from the three in the regular season, to go into the playoffs and shoot 33, it's not good. Marcus Morris Sr. needs to be better than that. He's shooting 70% from the free throw line. That's also not good. Now, he's not attempting a lot of free throws, but still. Marcus Morris Sr. just needs to make more shots. He just needs to make more shots. And all of these playoffs, Marcus Morris Sr. has been inconsistent. And given the fact that he hasn't shown me that he can go out there and get you 15 to 17 points consistently every single night, it's one of the reasons why Paul George needs to score at least 25 to 30 to make up for that. You can't get into a scenario where Marcus Morris Sr. goes 2 of 11, hits 1 or 0 3-pointers, and Paul George scores 21 points. That's not good enough. Because the Utah Jazz, as I'm going to get to a little bit later, they're going to keep coming at you in droves. So PG has to play very well just in case Marcus Morris Sr. does not, and I'm not expecting him to, because Marcus Morris Sr. has had some great looks from the three, and he has missed a lot of open shots, and he has not been good enough. They need him to play better, to be quite honest with you. They need him to play better and to shoot better, especially for the spacing. But to be quite honest with you, Paul George is talented enough to make up for him and Marcus Morris Sr., to be quite honest with you. He's talented enough to do it. He has enough skills to do that, right? But what you can't have is a scenario where Marcus Morris Sr. plays poorly and Paul George is just a lukewarm player. He's just out there not really doing anything amazing, right? He needs to score, but he needs to be impactful. If you look at Reggie Jackson, a lot of those threes that Reggie was hitting, those were important threes, timely threes, right? So Paul George, I don't need to see 27 points that don't matter. They come at the end when the game is already out of control and you're down by like 8 to 10 points and you're scoring. It doesn't matter at that point. We need Paul George to be hot from the very beginning. Max, I think PG will score 35 points today and Kawhi will score 26. I'll be very happy with that. If that happens, you got a happy camper here, to be quite honest with you. I wouldn't care. If that's the case, that's what happens, no problem. Now, to be fair to Paul George, these playoffs, we're going to talk about his overall production. Paul George is actually producing a little bit more in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. He's averaging 24 points per game. His field goal percentage is not great, but it's good enough. It's 44%. He's shooting 36% from the three. In the season, he shot 41%. That number needs to go up a little bit higher. He's a consistent free throw shooter. He's shooting 90% from the free throw line. He's rebounding the ball extremely well, getting you 8.6 rebounds and 5.3 assists. So that's fantastic. Kawhi Leonard, I don't even think I need to spend much time talking on it. But for the people that want me to talk about it, let me talk about it. Kawhi Leonard, all he's doing in these playoffs is averaging 30 points per game. He's shooting 58% from the field, which is 10 percentage points higher than he shot in the regular season. He's shooting 39% from the three, 90% from the free throw line. He's getting you 7.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 2.1 steals. What else do you have to say about the guy? So if Max is right and Paul George goes out there and scores, what did he just say? 35 points, I'll be happy. I really, truly, I don't care. As long as they win. Because it really doesn't matter if you score 50 points and you lose. Nobody really cares, right? So as long as they win, to me, that's the most important thing. You saw this guy, what's his name? What's the guy's name? Jason Tatum from the Boston Celtics. He was putting up good numbers, and they still lost. So nobody's going to remember your great numbers in the end. So those are one of the things that I'm going to be paying attention to. I think the Clippers need to come out and focus early on Donovan Mitchell, kind of similarly to what they did in game one. If you look at the previous 3 games that they played against the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell always got it rolling in that first quarter. He would score like 12 points, 10 points. Like he would just get it rolling, and then he would just keep rolling all throughout the game. Now, eventually, he ended up with 16 points in the first half, but it wasn't the same 16 points that he was scoring in game 1, 2, and 3. It was a different type of way. They didn't get him off to a hot start, which is something that I think they're going to definitely need to focus on. They can't allow him to get a rhythm right out of the gate. I don't think that would be good. They can't let this guy just come out there and start just like, putting up, crazy numbers. Now, let me say this. Because given the fact that so much of their offense goes through Donovan Mitchell, I still think he's going to end up with 30 plus points this game. This is what I personally think. I still think he's going to end up with 30 plus points this game. Now, let me give you guys some information that some of you guys may be unaware of. Do you know Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs is attempting 23.3 shots per game? He's attempting almost 4 more shots per game than Kawhi Leonard. Donovan Mitchell shoots a lot. Another thing that you guys may not be aware of is, do y'all know that Donovan Mitchell is attempting 10 3-pointers per game? 10. He's making about 4 per game, so he's shooting about 40% from the 3. So Donovan Mitchell is going to keep shooting. He's attempting 10 threes per game. He can attempt 7 straight 3-point shots because that's his game. He's their number 1 shot taker. He's averaging 4 more shot attempts than Kawhi Leonard. Now, he's not as efficient as Kawhi, but he's shooting well enough. He's shooting 40% from the 3. If you're making 4 3-pointers a game, that's 12 points per game you're making, right? So he attempts a lot of shots and he attempts a lot of threes. So they need to stay glued to this guy as much as possible. You saw in the first quarter, he was scoreless. Then in the second quarter, he got loose and started scoring, right? I don't think they can start off the game with him shooting like that, but they have to remember that they will keep shooting. Here's another stat for you guys. In game 3, the Utah Jazz attempted 44 3-point shots. 44. Now, they made 19 of them, but they attempted 44. Donovan Mitchell accounted for roughly 20% of those shots from the 3. So the Utah Jazz, they're going to keep coming at you in droves and waves and waves. It's just not one of those teams where you can get a 10, 15-point lead and relax. You got to keep scoring. You got to keep scoring, right? Joe Ingles. I don't know what Shannon Sharpe said today. Shannon Sharpe said that he expects Joe Ingles to make 4 3-pointers today. How can he make 4 when he only attempts 4 3-pointers in a game? I don't know why the Clippers don't attack their opponent's best player to make them work and put them into foul trouble. Hunt for Mitchell. And yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point you're making. It's a good point that you're making. Thanks for that. It's a good point that you're making. I agree with you. Who's the person that said that? Al Best, great one. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point you're making. But I'm sure that they have their reasons. So they attempt a lot of threes, and the Clippers are going to need to also make shots. Now, let me say this. I think the Clippers must be ready to constantly be chasing a lot of those Jazz players off of the 3-point line. And I think is one of the reasons that you see them keep playing this small ball lineup. The small ball lineup that the Clippers are playing, I think is probably I think is the best lineup in the playoffs right now, to be quite honest with you. I think is the most versatile lineup of any team in the NBA playoffs right now. This is just my opinion. This small ball lineup that the Clippers are running. And I'll tell you why. Because they're playing this small ball lineup with who's Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris Sr., and Nicholas Batum. This small ball lineup allows them to place with speed on the defensive side of the floor on the perimeter. They can play defense, but they're also quick. So if you look at the Clippers, a lot of that game on game 3, they were trapping Donovan Mitchell, but they were trapping and recovering. It's going to be very hard for you to do that with a conventional lineup. You can't run that type of defensive lineup out there with a Victor Zubac. He's not quick enough. He's just not quick. Zubac is not quick enough to double or show hard and recover. He's not quick enough to do that. That's just not. He's a 7-footer. But with this small ball lineup, it allows them to trap somebody like Donovan Mitchell, who's going to attempt 10 3-pointers in a game. But they also know that Bojan Bogdanovic, I think it's Bogdanovic, or Bojan Bogdanovic, and then these other players, these guys are also going to be threats on the floor. So you got to be able to scramble quickly. And I think this is one of the unique things about this small ball lineup, because they need to stay glued to those shooters. Now they're going to make their percentages, and not like as if you're going to stop them from attempting threes, because they attempted 44 threes, but you need to be able to at least like contest on some of those threes, right? You made them miss, over half of the shots that they attempted from the 3. That's the first thing. The second thing is this: the Clippers are going to need to make shots. Like, a lot of people don't focus enough on shooting. People talk about defense. A lot of people don't focus enough on shooting. Candace says, I missed game 3. What change did Ty Lue make that worked? And did Kawhi play on Mitchell? Yeah, Kawhi started on – thanks for that, Candace. Kawhi started on Mitchell. He played him in stretches. He went scoreless in the first quarter. He stayed small, and they trapped him. Essentially, that's what he did. Compton was good. Welcome in from Compton. Essentially, that's what they did. That's what they did to answer your question. So, as I was saying, the Clippers are going to need to make shots for a few reasons. People focus a lot on the defense. Guys, against a team that attempted 44 threes, you got to keep making shots. As you saw, Reggie Jackson, Paul George hit 6 3-pointer. Like, if you don't make your shots, that team will literally outscore you. It's not, at a certain point, it's not just about your defense. If you can't score, your defense means nothing. You saw in game 2, they were able to take a 1-point lead, and then they missed the 9 straight shots. What does that have to do with your defense? You got to be able to keep scoring. You're not going to hold a team scoreless for 6 straight minutes at the end of a game. It's just not going to happen. So they need to make shots. That's the first thing, because it keeps them scoring. Number 2, it allows you to set your defense. It's going to be really hard when you're always missing shots and you're always running back on transition to set up your defense. It's going to be really hard. Teams are going to be scoring on you in transition, and they're going to be scoring on you when your defense is already in shambles. So the Clippers need to make shots, because this team, as I said, they're not going to go away. Don't be surprised that at the beginning of this game, these guys come out there looking like gangbusters. Don't be surprised. Don't even be surprised if the Utah Jazz come out of the game and take an early lead. Don't be surprised. And it's very simple. If they come out there, they start making shots, the Clippers are not making shots, that's a recipe for disaster. And I hope we don't have a repeat of that. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit the likes. Make sure you guys hit the likes. Let's try to get the likes to 150 likes. Appreciate that. So we get the more notifications out. Let me just sip some water here. So that's going to be really important, right? Appreciate that. That's going to be really important. Them making shots. Let me talk about Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi Leonard will need to go for another 30-point night. I don't think he needs 40 or 45. I will take 30 from Kawhi. But if Kawhi is going to score 30, Paul George needs to be around that same 30-point mark. In game 3, their two stars combined for 65 points. You can't have a scenario where Kawhi scores like 30 and Paul George scores like 22. It's not going to be enough because you're going to put a lot of pressure on other players to score. Marcus Morris Sr. has not shown me that he's going to be consistent yet. Nicholas Batum has been very aggressive. Let me shout out to Nicholas Batum real quick. I love Nicholas. Let me say something. I really like the makeup of these guys. The makeup of their roster. They seem like they got a lot of tough guys, a lot of forwards that are mentally tough, that are not fazed by things. I think the Clippers have one of the toughest, the toughest, the teams. They're one of the teams out there with that are mentally tough. If you're like kind of ranking all these teams, I think they're up there. Think of the personnel that they have. You have Marcus Morris Sr. He's a strong-minded guy. You got Kawhi Leonard. Reggie Jackson, to an extent, is a fearless kind of guy. You got Nicholas Batum. Now, Paul George kind of seems sometimes like he kind of forgets himself. But when you have these type of guys around you, they can always keep you in the game. And if you go to the bench, you have Rajon Rondo. You have Patrick Beverly, who's always feeling confident in himself. And I think that's a good mix of players. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was following the Lakers, and they had Ron Artest, Kobe Bryant, Matt Barnes on the team, and Lamar Odom. And at a certain point, some people thought Pau Gasol was like kind of a soft player. And Ron Artest says something. He said Pau Gasol doesn't need to be a thug. He goes, that's why they got us. He said they don't need him to be hard. That's why they got us. Meaning, there's no way you're going to push up on Pau Gasol on a team that has Matt Barnes, Kobe Bryant, and Ron Artest. It's just not going to happen. I've never seen a team where Ron Artest and Matt Barnes and these guys were on, that you just went up to them and just straight up try to punk them. I've never seen it happen. Never, ever, ever seen it happen. Even in game 1, game 2, there's no way you're going to walk up to Paul George and start trash talking Paul George, and you think it's just going to happen like that when you got Kawhi Leonard on the floor and Marcus Morris Sr. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. These teams in the past have tried to intimidate Paul George because Paul George doesn't look like he talks trash back. But on this particular team, they can't do that. And not especially if you got Rondo and Boogie in the line. It's not going to happen. So I like the makeup of these guys. They have very tough, mentally tough guys. It just can't happen. I won't see it happen. I remember a game where I think, was it Serge Ibaka or James Harden tried to trash talk, or somebody was trying to trash talk Kobe, and Ron Artest was there, and Ron Artest was pushing dudes out the way. He was like a security. He was like a bodyguard. He was like, not today, not with me on the court. So I don't see that happening with Paul George. I think Paul George will be fine because his teammates are going to be there to kind of pull him up. I think also, I think that they should start Kawhi Leonard on Donovan Mitchell, but in spurts. They can't play him for an entire game. Now, we obviously know Kawhi Leonard, if it's man-to-man defense, he can guard Donovan Mitchell better than anybody else on the Clippers, in my opinion. He can guard him. I think another guy that's also good at playing defense is Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann is also a hell of a player, especially on the defensive side of the floor. He's a two-way player, right? I think that if they put Kawhi on these guys and they key in on him, they're going to make it hard for him all night to really score. They just can't allow Donovan Mitchell to go off of 40 and allow everybody else to go off of 40. Now, this is one of these teams where it's not like as if we're going to stop Donovan Mitchell from scoring and let everybody else score, because those guys can light you up. Those guys can shoot a lot of threes, and this is what makes this team so difficult, because they can beat you seemingly from everywhere. It seems like it's a very tough team to beat. I don't know why it is, but that's just how they are. Now, let me get into strategy. I told you I got a good live for you guys. Make sure you guys hit the likes. Let's try to get the likes to 150 likes. I got a lot more stuff for you guys. I want to talk about strategy for you guys today. So I think you guys hopefully are going to enjoy this, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this live and the information that we're giving to you here. So let's talk about strategy. I think that Ty Lue is like playing some mental games with a lot of the teams that he's going up against. I like what he's doing. This is what Ty Lue I've noticed he's been doing. If you notice, Ty Lue is playing in from game to game. He's playing different. He's playing a different combination of players from a game to game basis. And you guys know, whatever personnel that's on the court dictates the game plan you're going to have to play against those type of players. If Ty Lue put out there Boogie, DeMarcus Cousins, and if it's a Zubac, well, you know the way the Utah Jazz are going to play him, either they're going to have to adjust with their personnel or they're going to have to adjust with the way that they played him. You saw the back and forth with him, the tits for tat that he was having with Rick Carlisle in round one when they put in 2 7-footers and all of this. Given the fact that Ty Lue, generally he has the same starting five, but the rotation is different. In one game, you'll see him play Luke Kennard. You'll see him play, Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann. In another game, you'll see him play Patrick Beverley. In the fourth quarter, I think they sat down Marcus Morrison. He plays so many different lineups, and he allows the other team's coaching staff to kind of adjust to what he's doing because you don't know ultimately what his 8 to 9 or 10-man rotation is going to be on a game-to-game basis. Now, I don't know how much of that is strategy, but I think if it is strategy, it's actually pretty smart because it's forcing the Utah coaching staff to always make adjustments, and it can surprise you like that if that's what the opposing coach is doing. Another reason he does that is because I believe Ty Lue goes into a game. He has kind of like his starting lineup in mind, and then he adjusts his rotations based on how different players are playing. I think that's what happens. If he notices that a certain player is gotten off to a good start or has a good rhythm, like Luke Kennard, who I like, by the way, who had like 11 points in the first half, I believe it was in game 1 or game 2, then Luke Kennard is going to get more minutes than maybe somebody else, right? I think in game 1 or game 2, I didn't even see Patrick Beverley play. So Ty Lue kind of does this back and forth that he does, and I think it's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's part of his style, but obviously these guys are very, very smart, and they kind of know what they're doing. Why is the media acting like Mike Conley? You see, Candace said this. Candace just made a good point. We were on Dreamerspro Max for game 3, excuse me, and we started talking about Mike Conley, and I'm like, am I missing something here? People are acting like Mike Conley is Chris Paul or somebody, or like they're missing Stephen Curry or something like this. He's a very good point guard that helps their offense, but I wasn't hearing anybody discuss Mike Conley in game 1 and 2. Nobody mentioned Mike Conley when the Jazz were up 2-0. So why is he being mentioned to that degree? If you're going to mention Mike Conley as a key player as far as he's going to determine the series, my question is this then. If Mike Conley is so pivotal to this team, which he is, why weren't they harping on him in game 1 and game 2? I didn't hear anybody mention Mike Conley. It looked to me like the Utah Jazz were just fine without him. It was only until they lost game 3 then I started hearing about Mike Conley. Now, is he an important piece? Is he an important piece? Absolutely. But so is Serge Ibaka. But so is James Harden. So is Kyrie Irving. So is Nikola Jokic. So is Jamal Murray. It's the playoffs. I'm not trying to hear that because it's almost like a sympathy call. Like, well, wait a minute. The only reason you're beating me is not because we're not fully healthy. Newsflash. Every team in the NBA right now in the playoffs is not fully healthy. So I don't want to hear about it. If he comes back, so what? Are they going to be better? Yes, but I believe that the Clippers can beat the Utah Jazz with Mike Conley. Absolutely. I don't think Mike Conley comes back and all of a sudden the Clippers like, okay, oh my God, Mike Conley's back. We can't beat them. I don't want to hear that. Like, I don't buy into that. In the playoffs, so many teams have had to play with injuries. The Denver Nuggets just got swept in round 2. Jamal Murray didn't play. I don't think I heard anyone mention him. So I'm not really into the whole, this guy's not there, that guy not. That's the playoffs. Matter of fact, that's life. No point in even belaboring the point because he's not there. But I think every team can say that there one or two players that they wish was there was not there. And that's just, as they say, that's just tough luck. So let me get to my other point. Still talking strategy. I won't be surprised if the Clippers at different times throw out a zone defense, throw out a 3-2 zone in this case, because the majority of their scoring is coming from the perimeter, and this guy's not really a threat in the paint. These guys are not looking to drive the ball. Some people wonder why they run in a 2-3 zone instead of why they run in a 3-2 zone instead of a 2-3 zone, because a 3-2 is focused on perimeter defense, whereas a 2-3 is trying to guard against drives to the basket. And in this particular instance, I think they're trying to disrupt their offense on the perimeter because the Utah Jazz take a lot of threes. So a 3-2 is much better than a 2-3 zone. This is at least what I think, right? I'm not a coach. I never coached basketball. This is just what I'm assuming. I'm sure some of the people that are watching this live or that watch our channel play basketball and probably play professionally at some level. Maybe they can tell us in the comment section the difference between the 3-2 zone, 3-2 versus 2-3 zone. Maybe you guys can tell us in the comment section. But that's my understanding of it. That's what I think it is. So I think they may do that at different times. I think they won't do it for a long stretch because the Utah Jazz have shown that they can make shots against the zone. But I think they'll do it if they notice that they're in a consistent rhythm. You saw them do that in game 2, and it kind of broke up their rhythm a little bit, kind of messed up the offense a little bit for them, forced some turnovers and all of these different things. But if you look at the way the Clippers play, they have a lot of free safeties out there. If you think of Kawhi Leonard is one of the best players I've ever seen that can guard his man, recover, and get back to his man. He plays great positional defense, and this is what Paul George was saying. You saw him strip Donovan Mitchell. He wasn't even a primary defender. He was helping. He would just go get his mitts or whatever it is, his paws in there, grab the ball and run off with the ball, and he was heading down the other side of the court. So I think they're going to run that at different times. Well, where was I? Because where was I? About the 3-2 zone. I think Utah will also make some adjustments to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I think what Utah will probably do is I think they're going to try to force Paul George to beat them. They may do that. They may say, wait a minute, we can't allow both Paul George and Kawhi, and we know we're not going to be able to stop the two of them, but they're probably going to feel like they have a better chance at beating the Clippers if Paul George is the man instead of Kawhi. This is just something that I think. I think that's something that they may try to do. Like it could happen. They may send doubles at Kawhi Leonard all night. You saw in game 1 and game 2, he was actually limited with his overall shot attempts and also with the foul call with the foul call. But I think they're going to have to do a better job slowing those two players down. Now, I think it's going to be a close game ultimately. I think it's going to be a close game, and I think it's going to come down somewhat to the wire. I think it's going to be kind of hovering around an 8 to 10 point, 7 point game. It's going to be in between that. I don't think it's going to be like a 2-possession game all game long. I think the Clippers are going to be able to kind of get a lead on these guys at a certain point and be able to hold on to it. But that's going to come down to their ability to make shots. I expect Reggie Jackson to make shots. To a certain extent, I expect Nicholas Batum, who has been fantastic. Nicholas Batum, I cannot praise Nicholas Batum enough. I think in that game he scored 17 points. Y'all know that Nicholas Batum hit 4 3-pointers, and he only attempted 9 shots, but he hit 4 big threes. Nicholas Batum has been very, very aggressive. I think the Clippers are going to need to make shots. Luke Kennard has been also big in these playoffs. And funny enough, the Clippers have been playing pretty well in this series without even playing a playoff Rondo. Hell, to a certain extent, they haven't even played Patrick Beverley. Now, I like the fact that they bring in Patrick Beverley at certain points to put him on Mitchell because he's a disruptor. Can you put Patrick Beverley on Donovan Mitchell for an entire series? I don't think so. But if you can put him on him in stretches and give him different looks, especially if you say, okay, we're going to alternate between Kawhi Leonard and Patrick Beverley, I think that's a good defensive strategy, right? Patrick Beverley is a pest. He's an irritant. And I like the fact that they've been putting him on Donovan Mitchell in this series. So, 2 most important things to look for in tonight's game before I wrap it up here. Let's just conclude this thing here. Number 1, they have to try to contain Donovan Mitchell. Here's the first thing, and let me say it again. Donovan Mitchell is attempting 23-plus shots per game. So Donovan Mitchell is going to have an ample amount of opportunities to score. He's attempting over 10 threes a game. Don't be surprised at the end of the game if you see Donovan Mitchell with 4 or 5 3-pointers. He shoots a lot of threes. However, I think they need to make him inefficient. And I think they need to try to corral him and kind of, put him in a straitjacket early in the game. You can't allow him to just go out there and just start, come out there guns blazing. I think that's something important. I also think the Clippers need to make shots. In this series is about shot making because the Utah Jazz, they shoot a lot of threes. Now, the Clippers are the more efficient three-point shooting team. In game 3, the Jazz made 19 threes. The Clippers made, 16 or 17 threes? So they need to make threes. Another thing, Paul George. People keep hearing me talk about Paul George. Why not Kawhi Leonard? Why not Kawhi Leonard? Because Paul George is the X factor for the Clippers. When Paul George plays well, they are almost impossible to beat. Truly. If Paul George is rolling and he's in his bag and he's going to give you 30, 35, the Clippers are impossible to beat. They're impossible. Number one, because you can't load up on any side of the floor. Number two, given the fact that they play with 5 3-point shooters on the floor and their starting lineup guys that can shoot at least 40% from the three, you can't double PG. If you double PG, you're talking about leaving Marcus Morris Sr., Nicholas Batum, or Kawhi freaking Leonard open, or Reggie Jackson, who can hit you up in a game for 6 3-pointers. So Paul George it's so important that Paul George needs to play well. I think if the Clippers do those two things, number one, try to contain Mitchell. Number two, make shots. They're not sloppy with the ball. Both teams had a lot of turnovers in game 1. So I expect more of the same in game 2. But if they do those two things, I think the Clippers are going to have a legitimate shot at winning this game. This is my opinion, and I think they're going to tie the series. I feel good going into the series. I also want to say this. I don't feel the same sense of fear and kind of worry that I felt against the Dallas Mavericks. At certain points, I just felt like the Clippers, could they solve this team? That's what I thought about the Dallas Mavericks. Whereas the Utah Jazz, I don't get that feeling. I don't get the feeling that the Utah Jazz are just like unbeatable by the Clippers. And funny enough, the Utah Jazz are the better team record-wise. So it's interesting. I think a lot of people expect the Clippers to win, although the Utah Jazz have the better record, but I don't feel that same. I don't watch the game and feel like the Clippers are being outclassed right now. I don't get that sense. I feel like the Clippers are just as good as the Jazz or even slightly better, and I'll tell you why. In game 1 and game 2 in Utah, it was like an insane asylum in there. It was insane. And for the Clippers to be down in that arena, go down whatever it is points, and get back in the game in both games and almost have an opportunity to tie the game in game 1 and ultimately I think lost by 5 or 6 points. And then in game 2 to be down, I think 15 plus points or something like that in one stretch to come back and take the lead by 1 and you don't make shots. That tells me that these two teams are not as wide apart as you would think they are. You would think that, okay, maybe the Utah Jazz, they have them down now. Now we're just going to blow the doors off of them. But that's not what happened in those instances. The Clippers are right there. Now, the flip side of that is when the Utah Jazz got down in LA, I was surprised to see that the Utah Jazz were not even able to pull the game within 3 points or let alone take a lead. I was surprised by that. I was surprised. I also noticed that Donovan Mitchell seems to get flustered under pressure. I think Donovan Mitchell seems to be one of these players that can play well when he's ahead. But when things start going wrong, like when he starts to get turnovers and all of these different things, I've seen him kick water crates and kick chairs and start doing all of this. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute here. What's wrong? So it means to tell me that these guys can be flustered. They can be on top of their A game when they're rolling. But if you throw a little bit of adversity to them, are they going to still be able to hold it together mentally? Number one. Number two, are they going to fight back and really because I would have expected the Utah Jazz to play a little bit better. Now, maybe that's just one game, and game 4 is going to be a little bit different. But for so far, I got to say, I believe that the Clippers are definitely the more mentally tougher team. I 100% believe that. And listen, I also believe that given the fact that the Clippers came off an emotional 7-game series, for them to be in both of those games in Utah, I don't know what that says about Utah. Game 1, you can chalk it up to rust. Fine. You can say we're rusty. No problem. You can say the Clippers are playing off of adrenaline. But game 2, I was a bit surprised, right? I was a bit surprised. So I expect Utah to come out and play well, but I'm not sure if Utah is one of these teams that you can get them down and they'll be able to fight back. And one final point I'll say before I let you guys go. It's my final point. This Clipper team is different from last year, and I'll tell you why. If it was last year's team, they would have folded under the pressure. They would have folded. They would have no way they're fighting back. This Clipper team seems to fight back a lot. They have a lot of. They seem relentless. That's the difference here, and I think a lot of that has to do with the coach. I think a lot of that has to do with the coach and Ty Lue. They seem like a relentless group. They don't give up. I've noticed that they don't. They can be down, they can lose, but they haven't had any bad losses. To be quite honest with you, they fought in every one of those games. It's either they've lost close games or they've won games by a lot. But I haven't seen the Clippers get demoralized and beat down in a game before. I haven't seen it. So I'm seeing something different in them. And I think that first round series toughened them up. Seriously, it did. Whenever you go through any kind of adversity and you come out of it victorious, you're going to be better for it. The Utah Jazz have not faced any adversity this series. This play. They have not. They beat a round one team, a number 18 in 5 games. They were not tested. The Clippers were tested in round 1. And even now, they're being tested. So if they come back and win this series, imagine how formidable they're going to be in round 3. So listen, I think it's going to be a good game. But I definitely think that they're going to win. Yeah, I was referring to the playoffs. They did lose to the Mavs. Yes, they did lose to the Mavs by 50 points. I'm referring to the playoffs. I think they've gotten tougher. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, if you guys want to live chat with us tonight, make sure you go ahead and sign up to Dreamerspro Max. Marco has pinned that to the comment section up there. Sign up to Dreamerspro Max and chat live with us to get 7 days of access and all of that good stuff. Once again, thank you guys for being a part of this live. We appreciate that. And we'll definitely catch you tomorrow on the recap for the game. And have a good evening and have a good game. Catch y'all later. All right, peace.